this video, we're going to be evaluating a piecewise function. So first, how is a piecewise function defined? Well, it's when two or more equations are defined over specific domains. So in our example here that we're going to be evaluating, it says evaluate the function when x equals -2, 2, and 3. Then use a graphing utility to check your solutions, sketch your graph, and then it gives us the equation, right? F of x equals x squared plus 1, where x is less than 0, so that's one domain, and then x minus 1 whenever x is greater than or equal to 0. So what does that mean and how does that work? So what we're going to start off doing first is we're going to create a little XY table here just to keep things orderly, and it asks us to do three numbers. It asked us to plug in or find -2, 2, and 3. So -2, 2, and 3. So those numbers, we need to decide, where do they fall? So where does -2 fall? Does -2 fall as a less than 0 or a greater than equal to 0? And because it's a -2, it's going to fall in the less than 0 domain. Now the number 2 is a number that is greater than 0, so it is going to fall into our second domain. And 3 is also greater than 0, so that's going to fall into our second domain as well. Now what that means is that in order to evaluate when x is -2, we're going to use this formula, right? This one. We're going to use that first formula to do it. Okay? So let's go ahead and clean that up a little bit. So we're going to take our -2 squared plus 1, and we're going to see that that's going to give us a 5. So 5. That was our first equation. So to evaluate our second one, we're going to use the equation that goes with our second domain, which is x minus 1. All right, so we'll plug that in. X minus 1, and our x is a 2, and 2 minus 1 is 1, so put a 1 there. And we're going to use our second domain again, so that's the second equation, so 3 minus 1, which is 2, and we're going to go ahead and plug that in. So now we're going to use a graphing calculator to make sure that we've done it right. So we're going to go into our y equals, we're going to put in our first equation. Now because it's a piecewise, we're needing to put it in parentheses. So parentheses, x squared plus 1, close parentheses, and then open parentheses again, x. Now here we have less than 0. So to get to the less than sign, we're going to go to test. So second math brings us to test, and we'll go down to option 5, which is our less than, and then put our 0 and close our parentheses. We'll go down to the next line, same thing, parentheses, x minus 1, close parentheses, open parentheses again, x, and we need the greater than or equal to sign this time, so we're going to go ahead and go to test, so second test, and we're going to put in our greater than or equal sign, and then our 0, and then we're going to go to the table. So table, so second graph is table, and so we plugged in a -2. So notice in -2, we were supposed to use the first equation, and we got a 5. And then for our, let's see, our 2 value, notice how we got a 0 there, means it doesn't work. And there's our 1. And then we plugged in a 3 and got a 2. So we see that it works. So what we're going to do next is we're going to graph those points really quick. So we have -2, 5. And we have 2, 1, and 3, 2. But what does that look like? So we go back to our calculator. We can actually hit graph. Now notice that right here on that little star, we have a straight line on 0 for the red and a straight line on 0 for that blue. And that just means that those don't exist there. That we come down and we have an open circle right there, and then we have a closed circle down here. And we know that our first one's going to be an open 0 because it was a strictly less than. So let's go ahead and let's sketch that. So now we know that this, let's see, so at where y equals 1, it looks like we have that break. Okay, so y equals 1. So right here, we're going to have an open circle. We're going to come up. And then, again, looking at our graph, we see that at, -1 is where we'll have that closed circle on our y. So at -1, we'll have a closed circle, and it'll come up through. And so that's what our graph is going to be sketched to look like.